Hello, and welcome to Universal Endpoint Management Security Implementation Best Practices, presented by Michael Ritimo, Principal Security Consultant at Cybersecurity Simplified, and John Osei, Information Security Consultant at Handelsbanken. So here's the agenda. We will start by doing a quick overview of the Cloud Control Matrix version 4, then review Universal Endpoint Management, also known as UEM controls. We will then examine cloud security providers and cloud service customers' shared responsibility model, and then delve into security best practices we can implement for UEM. And then we will finally conclude. So let us start by reviewing the Cloud Control Matrix version 4. A lot of people ask, what is the Cloud Control Matrix? So the Cloud Security Alliance is a cloud control matrix, also known as CCM, specifically designed to provide fundamental security principles to guide cloud vendors and to assist prospective cloud customers in assessing the overall security risk of a cloud provider. The CCM is aligned and mapped to global regulations and the most relevant security frameworks. In addition, it delineates security responsibilities for cloud service providers and customers with the shared security responsibility model, also referred to as the SSRM. It also provides service delivery model applicability for software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service per individual control. Let us go ahead and look at the various components that comprise of the CCM framework. So we have various components in this framework. First and foremost, there's something called the controls applicability matrix. We also have implementation guidelines that have been drafted. And then we have the core controls that describe which control you need to implement. And then we also have auditing guidelines. We also have the CIQ, which is a questionnaire that you can use to send to your prospective vendors. We also have something called CCM Lite, if you want to do a light version of the cloud control matrix. Then we also have the SSRM guidelines that we've just talked about. We also have mappings. We can map the controls to different frameworks. There's also gap analysis and addenda. Last but not least, we have metrics. So as far as the cloud control matrix is concerned, we have 17 security domains. 17 security domains, right? We will be focusing on one. So now we will go ahead and look at the domains covered by the cloud controls matrix. There are 17 domains, 17 domains. We'll be focusing on one, which is the Universal Endpoint Management, but I'll kindly highlight the others. So we have audit and assurance, application and interface security, business continuity management and op resilience, change control, configuration management, cryptography, encryption, and key management, very important in the cloud. We have to encrypt our data center security, data center security privacy, governance, risk management and compliance, human resources security, identity and access management, also known as IAM. In the cloud, IAM is your first control, it's your first security border, right? Because everything is accessible through the internet. So that's your first control. Interoperability and portability, infrastructure and virtualization security, logging and monitoring, security incident management, e-discovery and cloud forensics, supply chain management, transparency and accountability, threat and vulnerability management, and last but not least, the one we're going to look at, Universal Endpoint Management. So let us dig deeper into Universal Endpoint Management. This is also referred to as UEM, the domain itself. So the domain specifically has 14 control specifications. We'll kind of touch lightly on. So Universal Endpoint Management, UEM, the domain consists of 14 specific controls specifications that we'll be looking at. One is around endpoint devices, policy and procedures. There's one around application and service approval. There's one around compatibility, endpoint inventory, endpoint management, automatic screen lock, operating systems, storage encryption, very important to encrypt your data, anti-malware detection and prevention, making sure our managed endpoints have anti-malware detection, software firewall, data loss prevention, also known as DLP. We have to configure our managed endpoints with DLP technologies and remote locate in case we lose our endpoints, remote wipe in case of any issues where the devices cannot be found or stolen, and endpoint security posture management. So next, we will review the cloud service providers and cloud service customers shared responsibility model, also known as the SSRM. So cloud service providers and cloud service consumers control implementation responsibilities vary, right? So both cloud service providers and cloud service consumers typically independently responsible for implementing the UEM security controls. So they're independent. So the cloud service providers are primarily responsible for maintaining an inventory of all the endpoints. They have to approve services and any applications that are acceptable. They have to implement security measures, like we talked about automatic screen lock, DLP, data loss prevention technologies. And the cloud service consumers, which is us or you, are responsible for securely managing those devices, ensure that you comply with the security policies that have been set up by yourself as well as the cloud service provider to ensure that your data is protected at all times. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to John Osei to go ahead and break it down further.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. So the next couple of slides, really, I'll be sharing with you some security implementation best practices. We have identified that will assist your IT and security teams to monitor, manage, and secure all of your organization's endpoint or end user devices. So over here, we have identified a number of risks, and also mitigating control. So the first risk there is lack of comprehensive endpoint security policy and procedures. So basically, without standardized policies, endpoint security controls may be inconsistent, leading to weaknesses and potential entry errors for threat. Now, what is the mitigated control that we have identified? Now, this is basically UEM 01, which is endpoint devices, policy, and procedure. I just cannot overemphasize that it is vitally important to establish robust endpoint devices, policy, and procedures that will actually help ensure that your devices are managed in a consistent manner. And the second risk that we have identified is installation of applications from unauthorized sources. Basically, without an approved list of services and applications, there is a risk of installation from unauthorized services. And to mitigate these risks, we've actually highlighted two controls there from the UEM domain, and that is U02 and 14. So basically, it is important to actually define and document a list of approved services and applications acceptable for use by endpoint. And crucially, and I will really recommend this, you can actually use Universal Endpoint Management tools to create an app store where users can actually download, install, and periodically update enterprise-approved applications. This will basically help prohibit the use of specific applications and crucially prevent unauthorized applications. Moving on to the next set of risks. So risk number 3, and this is also vitally important, lack of visibility and rogue devices. We all know the effect, the danger of that rogue devices pose to our cloud resources. So unauthorized endpoint pose threat to cloud resources and workload. And what are the controls that we have identified to mitigate this risk? Basically, two controls, which is UEM 03 compatibility and 04 endpoint inventory. I would recommend that we implement a diagnostic tool that actually checks endpoint security features for non-compliance and automate remedial activities before endpoints are allowed to access corporate networks. And also to UEM tools to automatically enforce enrollment and provision for any new or unknown device that is trying to connect to your network. The fourth risk is data leaks and data breaches. This is so vitally important. We all have heard of cases of, data breaches, data leaks. Data leaks expose confidential and proprietary information to unauthorized parties. It could be accidental or even malicious or intentional. Regardless, there are three controls that can actually help mitigate these risks. And these are 08, that's storage encryption, UEM 10, software firewall, and UEM 11, data loss prevention, DLP. Now, utilize universal endpoint management tools to A, apply and enforce security policies, B, isolate corporate and personal data on endpoint. Also utilize industry standard encryption algorithm, certified to relevant bodies, FIPS, for instance, and strong encryption to protect information held on endpoint. It is vitally important to implement firewall rules to limit traffic from endpoint to only trusted sources. And finally, implement a robust DLP technology to detect and prevent unauthorized exfiltration of sensitive data. Moving on to the fifth risk, which is malware. Now, once that is present on endpoint or connected devices, sophisticated threat and malware can move laterally across company networks, exfiltrate data, encrypt files for ransomware, or enlist infected devices into botnets for further attack on endpoint. And to mitigate these risks, we've got UEM 09, which is anti-malware detection and prevention. Now, technical measures should be implemented to prohibit using or installing unauthorized software, including restrictions on obtaining data and software from external sources. Again, back to the UEM tools, you can actually use that to A, push patches and update to endpoint, and B, to install the latest antivirus definitions on devices. The sixth risk, which is last but not the least, is stolen or lost devices. If proper safeguards are not in place, the loss or thefts of endpoint devices can seriously compromise an organization's data security. Now, we've got a couple of controls there, about 5 in total, from storage encryption, your software firewall, your data loss prevention tool or technology, be able to know where your endpoint is connecting to your network from, what location, what country, and crucially, be able to remote wipe any endpoint that is either lost or stolen. If you implement these controls, you'll be able to actually mitigate the effect of lost or stolen devices. Now, in conclusion, I just cannot overemphasize that the responsibilities for the UEM controls are well defined and documented between the CSP and the cloud service consumer. Both must ensure that all endpoint devices utilized to access cloud services are managed within corporate policy and in line with industry standard. But come to think about it, really, if your endpoint are not secure, which is entering point to your corporate network, then nothing can be secure. So it is vitally important that these controls are well designed, effectively, and also implemented effectively, and ongoing monitoring to ensure that all endpoints are, secure and accessing the corporate resources in a secure manner. Now, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please do want to reach out to those useful links there. You can reach out to the CSS support group. So we've got the email address there. And if you want to talk to Lefteris in particular, you can reach out to him. He is the program manager for CCM. And crucially, I would advise that you can actually go in there, download a lot of interesting free artifacts around the CCM from the control matrix itself, the implementation guideline, which is really, I'll probably say an important piece of research work, in collaboration with cloud service providers, and also your CCM Lite and the consensus assessment initiative questionnaire, CAKE Lite for short. And also, if you want to get involved, we've got a lot of wonderful research initiative going on and we're looking for volunteers, please do well. Visit the site. No, the URL is there. Go to on the webpage, sign up to any of these groups, and be part of this exciting community. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.